Hey, welcome to part 2 of Actively Listening, why we need to be trauma informed and how it's going to help us in our personal relationships. I want to share all of this because I'm passionate about healthy relationships. I'm passionate about coaching, and all of that fits with what we're talking about here and hopefully will help you. And that's why we're having these conversations, and that's why I'm doing this podcast. All right, so let's jump right in. Hopefully you've watched part 1 because that set a good foundation for this episode. All right, actively listening focuses on what the client or person you're interacting with is and is not saying to fully understand what is being communicated. All right. So I don't know if you've heard the term behavior is a language, and how important we mentioned. I said this in the very beginning of the last episode. Language is important. So it's verbally what we're saying, but it's also with our body. So when you hear me say this is and is not saying, that's what that means. It's the words that are coming out of their mouths, but also the body language. All right. So that's kind of what we are focusing on as coaches in sessions. And it's also what I have started focusing on in my personal relationships. And it has made a really big difference. So we'll get more into that in just a moment. So that's the definition. Active listening, there's a few things I want to list out here on what it is. Considers the person's context, identity, environment, experiences, values, and beliefs to enhance understanding of what the client is communicating. So as a coach, we go into a session with a client and we are so focused on them. We're learning about them. We are asking questions to learn about them, to learn about what is their context, what is their environment, what are their experiences, what are their values and beliefs, because all of that plays a part in how they move forward or not. And so all of that is important to understand. Reflects or summarizes what the client communicates to ensure clarity and understanding. We're going to talk about this more in a bit, but curiosity here is what is going to be implemented. We don't assume, we don't judge, we get curious, okay? Because we want them to express as much as possible so that we have a better understanding. Recognizes and inquires when there is more to what the client is communicating. And this is a part of tuning into their body language. We're going to watch maybe how they're shifting in their chair. You notice I just kind of did this, right? I'm a little fidgety. I like to kind of fidget. Doesn't really mean anything. It's just part of what I like to do. But for some people, especially when they're describing or explaining something, they might start to, they might sit back. They might cross their arms. They might look down. There's all kinds of things that we have to tune into and gives us that, what's that about? Not to judge, not to say, oh, they're disengaging and take offense. That's not going to do me any good as a coach to do that. I need to get curious. Why are they disengaging? Okay, there's a difference. All right, notices, acknowledges, and explores the client's emotions, energy shifts, and nonverbal cues or other behaviors, like I was just saying. Integrates the client's words. Here's a good one. Words, tone of voice, and body language to determine the full meaning of what is being communicated. And yes, I know this sounds like a lot, but really, if you implement this in your personal relationships, this is going to give you so much more understanding of that person you're interacting with. Do they use a certain word or group of words often as they're telling a certain story or as they're communicating with you? What's their tone of voice? And again, body language. How are they sitting? What are they doing? It all plays into where this person is at, because we are so multifaceted as people. So if all we're doing is focusing on a client's words or a person's words that we're trying to interact with, right? None of that, just focusing on one of those things is not going to give a full understanding. And that's what we need. All right. Lastly, notices trends in the client's behaviors and emotions across sessions. So for personal, it would be across those times that you spend together. Multiple interactions will inform you on this person's behaviors and emotions and their behavior and their patterns that they are in. And it'll help us to discern those themes and patterns. All right. The opposite of all of that I just spoke on is doing this. It's listening to someone sitting across from you and already forming a response in your mind before they're done talking. That's the opposite. That is not going to create a healthy environment for that relationship. That's going to create judgment, assumptions, miscommunication. It's not going, it'll thwart and it'll stunt the growth of that relationship. So we want to do the opposite. I know it sounds like a lot, but really once you start to understand these principles and begin to implement them, I think you're gonna find that they're pretty natural to do. And the rewards of relationships based on this, it's so much better. It's so much better than not having it. You won't be able to do this with everybody. I get it, because to some extent they're going to have to engage as well and participate. But if you start it, see where it goes. So I guess, in essence, not only will this bring about healthier relationships with you, but it'll also weed out those relationships that were never going to get healthy. There is that potential as well. All right. All right, moving on. When listening to our clients or the person we're in a personal relationship with, it's important to understand life through their perspective and how they experience it. So we clarify by reflecting on what's said. Ask further questions with curiosity. I started to talk about curiosity just a moment ago. It is so important. And this was something pretty new for me when I started training as a coach and going through my education. I don't feel like I was curious enough. I think I spent more time trying to form a response rather than paying more attention to the person, listening to their words, watching their body language, watching for mood swings, and being curious about all of that. I would judge it. I would assume things by it. And it creates so much more miscommunication, like I said. So ask further questions with curiosity. Be curious about why their mood has changed. Ask them, I just noticed this shift in your mood. Can you tell me more about that? I just noticed that you've got some tears starting. Would you mind sharing with me what that's about? All right. And always give them the freedom to say no. If they're not comfortable, they're not comfortable. Okay. Remember, it's about that environment we established. And we have to maintain safety, trust, and empathetic. All right. So when listening to, so now we've talked about curiosity. Observe verbal and nonverbal language. We talked about that. Body language and the words they're saying. Recognize behavioral patterns. Again, are they shifting in their seat? Are they folding their arms? Are they looking down? Or are they very, very engaged? That's all important to know. Consider context and environment. Okay. Now, there are a couple of different types of listening that I'm going to talk about here, but just kind of briefly because it really goes, this is more about coaching, but I think, again, it's still helpful when you understand this for personal relationships. The internal listener is absorbed in their own inner voice, reflecting on their thoughts, feelings, and opinions. From this state, they frequently attempt to steer the conversation. So this is what I was talking about earlier, right? You're hearing what the other person is saying, the other person is talking, and you're already forming a response in your mind on what you're going to say. That's internal listening, and it's not real effective. That pattern is destructive, actually, to healthy relationships, and it's something that really needs to change. Focused listening, focused on the client's words, body language, and expressions, the listener gains insight into their needs, able to mirror or backtrack as necessary. They tune out their inner voice and external distractions. That's more of what we all need to be doing, okay? All right, so let's talk about backtracking and paraphrasing, right? Backtracking, retracing one's path, return to something that was mentioned, all right? Reverse, rethink, and change, all right? So backtracking is just, hey, can I ask you about this that you said back here? Can you tell me more about that? Or I'm not sure I'm clear on what you mean when you said that, all right? Paraphrasing, a restatement of a text, passage, or work, giving the meaning in another form. Restate, reword, translate. So again, this comes from being curious. You heard something they just said, and it's not hitting you right. It's like there's a question about it. So what you do is you paraphrase and say, did you say this? And then you word whatever it was that they said. You can try and use their exact words, because a lot of times too, when we use their exact words and they hear it back, they say, oh, I did not mean that. They hear it differently. So that's like a mirror, and it's very effective in communicating, so that clear understanding happens. All right. On that one last thing, in an environment that's healthy and that includes active listening, this is all under active listening, is to share observations. Listening to our intuition involves sharing observations without attachment. Okay. The aim is to observe the effect it has on the speaker when you share what you've noticed. Examples of observations to share: a noticeable shift in mood, energy, or emotion, emphasis on or repeated use of particular words or phrases, a long pause or silence, a perceived deviation from the goal or topic, changes in distraction or engagement levels. So I know it sounds like a lot. It does. But really, it becomes really natural now that you're aware of it. So again, I'm going to recap here. You focus on the words they say, you focus on their tone, and you focus on the body language, their shift in mood, but their shift in body language, what they're doing along with what they're saying. We focus on what they're not saying. Again, the body language, what they're saying with that, but also a long pause or silence. So they just might sit back, put their head down, and not say anything. And our job isn't to jump in and get them engaged again. Our job is to observe. Give them that space. And once enough time has passed, then we can see if they're ready to re-engage. But it's all about allowing for that healthy environment if we want to have healthy relationships. So it's about removing our preconceived ideas of that person, and our assumptions of that person, our judgments, and just being curious and asking questions. Now, if the other person doesn't engage, we talked about that at the beginning of this video. If it's not a situation where both parties are involved and participating, again, it's the relationship won't go very far, and it won't be a very close relationship because not both parties are participating. You both have to participate in order for this to grow into something beautiful, into something freeing, right? And to have freedom in the relationship. That's what ends up happening. All right. So this video is now long enough, so I'm going to end that here. But I would love to hear your questions. I'd love to hear what maybe was sparked while you were listening to all of this. Even things like, okay, but what about this, right? You're trying to figure out how to apply what I've just shared, and ask me about it, and let's have some conversation. All right, so thanks for tuning in. Again, I said it again, tuning in. Does anyone say that? I don't know. All right, thanks for listening, and I hope you'll come back and we'll have more conversation. I'll see you next time.